Hey, welcome to the channel. We hope that you enjoy today's stories and check out the chapters on the video to see all the stories for today. But before we get into this video, subscribe to the channel and hit that bell icon to get notified when we release a new video. So let's get into the video.
My daughter has been seeing ghosts since she was a toddler. Ever since my daughter was the age 2, she has been able to see things that I or no other family member could see. It was never anything ever scary, just little kids she would talk to or what they would make themselves appear as. Fast forward to the year of 2018. My daughter was now 8 at the time. We had just moved into a new duplex apartment complex, me, my daughter, and my 3-year-old son, and everything seems okay at first. Nothing was ever giving me bad vibes or anything like that. Plus, my daughter had not seen a ghost in over a year at this point. After about 2 months of staying there, I walk into my daughter's room one day and she was talking to and playing with another little girl. I asked her the girl's name and when did she start seeing her, and she responded that she met her last week and she is a sad little girl. Now, before I go any further, I just want to point out that I have never felt comfortable with her seeing the things she saw, and I never encouraged her to keep talking to them. In all honesty, I would tell her not to interact with them and tell them to leave her alone, but after years of going through it and seeing that nothing was harming her, I just got used to it and just talked to her about the things she saw, because in reality she couldn't help what she saw. Now back to the story. So, after she told me about the little girl, I brushed it off and told her to be careful as always and to come to get me and let me know if anything was ever wrong. After about a week or so, I didn't hear about the little girl anymore, but I didn't think too much of it because they come and go. Now, also around this time, things started to feel different in the house, especially when my kids would be gone for the weekend. At night, it would feel as though someone was watching me and I would hear things in the attic. Oh yeah, I forgot to mention it was an attic in the duplex, but I never went up there ever. Attics have always spooked me out. So, one night after getting the kids into bed, I was watching TV and must have dozed off because the next thing I knew I heard my daughter screaming and crying at the top of her lungs. I immediately jumped out of bed thinking someone has broken into the house and ran straight for my kids' room. When I get to the room and turn on the light, my daughter is sitting up in bed still screaming but looking in the corner of the other side of the room. I grab my son and her and ask her what is wrong, and she continues to scream and cry while pointing and asking,
"Mommy, don't you see them?"
I looked at where she was pointing to a blank room and immediately knew that she was seeing something, but this was different. I tried to calm her down and ask her what it is she was seeing. She then began to say,
"Mommy, they are right there. All of them. Why can't you see them?"
At that moment, I began to panic, but I never showed my fear in front of her. I kept calm and asked her what they are doing. She then says they are playing instruments and laughing at her. She also says that they kept smiling at me and she shouted at them to leave me alone. Then she finally looks at me and asks me what does 666 mean. At that moment, it was like my whole body went into protection mode. You would think I was scared, but I immediately became enraged at the fact that my innocent child was being taunted by childish evil entities. I grabbed her hand and rushed to my room and locked the door and did the only thing I knew to do. I prayed and called my cousin, who came over to bless the room. After almost 2 hours of my child being scared and me trying to let her know nothing is going to harm her because she is protected by Jesus, she finally fell asleep in my bed. You would think that after a night like that everything would stop, but no, it seemed as if I pissed one of them off. So, while my kids were sleeping in my bed, I had just fallen asleep when something told me to wake up. I immediately woke up and for the first time ever, I saw a dark figure gliding over to where my daughter was sleeping, and before they could bend down to touch her, I shouted at them to leave her the hell alone. Yeah, I had lost my mind because the figure came over me so fast, but I grabbed my Bible from under my pillow and started saying the Lord's Prayer and it went away. After that night, I moved out and left all the furniture because I didn't want anything attached to it, and we never went back.
I used to work in a building that was haunted, but I didn't know. Been looking for this kind of sub because I've been dying to share these experiences. I'm an avid believer in the paranormal, but if I wasn't, this building would have done it for me.
I used to work in a pretty standard pub, in a small English town, with lots of local regulars, nothing out of the ordinary. But after a while, the staff started to tell me stories. I learned it was an old Victorian house, with a family living upstairs, a woman living where the bar was, and that the cellar had once been a doctor's surgery. The deepest room in the cellar was used as a laundry room but had always made me extremely uneasy. I was told this was where the old surgery was, and that there was a ghost in the cellar who didn't like women in there. They said the only way to protect yourself was to tell the ghost you had a right to be there. I also heard that the woman who died in the bar was still there. I was uneasy, but I kept working. Nothing happened until I'd been there a few months. The first big experience. I was in the pub alone before a shift. I'd gone down to the cellar to collect bottles of drinks to refill the fridges upstairs. I then decided to go deeper into the cellar to get clean towels. On my way out, the lights cut. I heard the laundry door slam behind me, and footsteps coming up behind me. They sounded so heavy, like a man. I heard heavy breathing and I swear my heart was pounding. As soon as the footsteps stopped, the lights came on. There was nobody there. But I ran. I ran upstairs and bolted the door. I had the worst feeling. When my colleagues turned up, they said I was shaking. I remembered just praying and refusing to go back downstairs. The second experience. I was in the bar with my colleague, when a woman walked up to the bar. We were serving other customers, so she was in our periphery. She very clearly asked us if we could please help her. We said yes, just to wait a minute please, and she said that she'd be waiting. She walked out of the bar and into the adjoining concert room. Once I'd finished serving, we went into that room to see what she wanted. She was gone. What made it weird? That room had no other exits. She walked in and vanished. We checked the CCTV and there was no sign, but we had both seen her. It shook me up, but unlike the first encounter in the cellar, I didn't feel scared. I felt sad. It was like she was a residual spirit, lost and lonely. I hope she's managed to find peace. The third experience, this one was the second negative experience. Every area in the building had a telephone in it, the idea being that we could just call each room, as it was a huge building. The only phone that was broken was the one in the cellar because it never worked, and my boss just didn't see the point in replacing it. Nobody really used the phones anyway. I'd finished up for the day and had gone upstairs to the office and staff room. I was collecting my bags when the internal phone in the office rang. I was very surprised because there was nobody else in the building. I went to check the screen to see where the person was calling from. They were calling from the cellar phone. The one that had been broken for years. I frantically texted the other staff, they confirmed nobody was there. I answered the phone, but nobody spoke, so I hung up. The second I did, they started calling again. I had that awful uneasy feeling from the cellar ghost again. I grabbed my things and got the hell out. I told my boss the next day, and she checked the cellar and confirmed the phone was still out of use. I felt really sick. That place had so many little spooky things, doors closing, bar shutters rattling, and things moving around. Snooker balls rolling on their own, curtains twitching, but none of that stuck with me like these three experiences. The second one just made me sad, but the encounters in that cellar made me feel sick. I used to dread going down there. I'd feel upset and emotional every time I left the cellar and would only feel safe if I prayed or if I crossed myself. I've no idea what was living down there, but it can't have been good. Every woman who went into that cellar came out looking pale and upset and needed a few minutes to herself. I was thrilled when I got to quit that job.
If you're enjoying today's video about stories of our lives, hit that like button and subscribe to the channel to see more videos like this and more. Now, let's get back to the video.
I think I saw a ghost. So, I'm a truck driver and transport equipment for a construction company. The other day I was on my way to a job site to move a Mini X, and this job site is in the middle of a bunch of fields. There are no houses nearby for at least 500 yards in any direction. There's a road that goes past the job site and then hangs a left. Basically, the job site is on a corner. I was coming up to the job site and there was this teenage-ish looking girl that looked like she was straight from the 1990s walking down the road near the site. I then flipped my truck around to park and glanced at her again, just caught off guard with her style choice. Then I looked in my mirror for no more than 5 seconds to back up my truck and trailer along the side of the job site and then glanced back up where the girl previously was, and she was gone. It surprised me and I started looking around like no way, she just disappeared. There were no cars currently driving by. Remember, there's nothing for hundreds of yards in any direction. I could see if there were a car that could have possibly picked her up, and she was just gone. Nothing but flat fields in any direction. It blew my mind. This was midday, so there weren't really any creepy spooky vibes. It's just bizarre and I can't explain what happened.
My daughter had another mommy. When my daughter was almost 3, she was in her new bed on the opposite side of the room that she and her little brother, my son, 1-year-old, shared. She asked me where the other mommy was. I was confused, as she hadn't been in daycare since she was 6 months old, wasn't in any sort of program, and I was a stay-at-home mom. I asked her what she was talking about, and she said sometimes she sees her other mommy and hands come out of the wall. She said the hands were scary and she did not like the hands. She didn't seem frightened of the other mommy. I didn't press and just let it go and told her good night. I mean, she wasn't even 3 yet, didn't watch TV and mostly just played with toys, and we went to parks occasionally. That was the extent of her world thus far. Talk of the other mommy went on for about 6 months, but the hands talk went on for another year. She hated the wall that her bed was against. She talked about the scary hands coming out of her wall at least twice a week, but she never felt scared enough to not go to sleep or try to not sleep in her room as long as her brother was in there. We moved after that, and the hand talk was gone. She never really went into detail about any of it. I don't really think she knew how to describe what was going on, and I didn't press. Any ideas on this one? Edited to add, I had 2 experiences in this apartment myself, with my bedroom door that was closed with a clothes rack hanging on it violently shaking for about 3 seconds one morning. I thought my husband had come home, but no one was there. My kids were in their room sleeping. They had a safety thing on the doorknob, so there's no way it was one of them, and I had no pets. Another incident occurred when my family woke up to our front door being wide open. We never used the front door and it stayed locked. We only used our garage. Nothing was stolen or out of place. It was a safe, quiet area in a suburb.
A dead friend told me he passed. I've had a lot of paranormal experiences in my life. I'd like to post some as a way to document it and share my personal experiences. Thank you for listening. This happened fairly recently. I had a friend whom I'll call Jack, and we met when we were 17. I had a huge crush on him, lol. We actually dated for 2 weeks before realizing we were better off as friends. We were best friends for years, and I always felt a deep connection to Jack, even after we lost touch. In 2019, another friend of mine whom I'll call Diane tried to find Jack on Facebook. We couldn't find him and even messaged the wrong guy accidentally. Then a couple of months later, Jack found me on Facebook and messaged me out of the blue. We talked and texted and got back in touch. Diane and I wanted to meet up with him, but it was the height of the pandemic, so we didn't. Jack and I kept in touch all of 2020. I remember texting him how thankful I was we all had survived 2020. We made it! In January 2021, the lights in my house started flickering one day. The next day, I saw someone walk into my office and I assumed it was my daughter. But no one was there. More lights flickered. The TV turned on by itself. Diane gave me the number of a medium. I made an appointment for the coming Saturday. Feeling relieved and hopeful, I took a shower before bed. As I cleared my mind under the hot water, I tried to think who would come through when I saw the medium. In my head, I heard Jack's voice say she doesn't know I'm gone. I hadn't talked to Jack in a bit and made a mental note to text him in the morning, just to shake this feeling. The next morning, a mutual friend called me to tell me Jack had died. He accidentally overdosed on fentanyl. I was crushed. It still hurts. He was a good friend. I should note that I have SLI or sliders, street light interference, and tend to affect electronics and such, so I didn't think much of the lights flickering at first. Thanks for listening to my experience.
Thanks for watching, and if you enjoyed today's video, hit that like button and subscribe to the channel to see more videos about stories of our lives. Click on one of these videos to watch more and see you soon.